Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family. Do you guys like the new intro? If so, let me know in the comments and in the chat. Anyways, you notice things look a little bit different around here. And you'll notice that what used to be called Master Paul's Music and Games is now called the Everything Else Guys. And tonight is going to be sort of an explanation as to what's been going on lately, why things have changed, why things will continue to change. But before we get into all of that, we are going to go ahead and get into a bit of a breakdown as far as The Mandalorian Season 3. And I want to say a quick hello to Ghost Rider. Thank you for joining. So, Mandalorian Season 3. You guys know that when it first started airing, I was covering it weekly. But then I stopped because I was not really that big of a fan of the Dr. Pershing episode, sort of in hindsight. And I just kind of found myself not really wanting to watch through it again weekly. And so I'm not going to talk about anything that I'm not going to talk about anything on here that I'm not watching. And so focus turned away from Mandalorian. But I knew that I wanted to get to it. But just because I wasn't watching it doesn't mean that I wasn't aware of what was going on. Because I had seen, all the reactions of my friends, to, say, Jack Black and Lizzo popping in. Or how Bo-Katan managed to get her hands on the Darksaber finally. And we'll talk about all of those when they come in. And the main consensus that I took away from what others were saying, of course, was that The Mandalorian Season 3 was an absolute disaster. And for those that still kind of believed in the rumors that the sequel trilogy was going to get retconned, I'm sorry to say it, The Mandalorian Season 3 puts the final nail in the coffin for that ever happening. All roads do indeed lead to Rey Skywalker, the death of Luke, Han, and Leia, and either you're okay with that or you aren't at this point. But anyways, enough about that. Let's get into what actually happened this season. And I'm not going to go through any individual episodes. I'm basically going to do this like I did with Cobra Kai and talk about the season as a whole. So I have a couple things that I have labeled as good and bad. And unfortunately, I have more bad than good. Now, if anyone's watching and there's something good about this that I haven't considered, or if one of the things that I consider good you guys think is bad or vice versa, please tell me in the chat. But we're going to start off, unfortunately, on a bad note. And that is the fact that it had a weak premiere. Hold on, I spelled that wrong. I literally just realized this one as I was talking, so I typed it in last minute. But yeah, a weak premiere. And of course, hello to Crit. In fact, Crit, I'm going to bring you on. So check your Discord, Crit. I am sending you the link because I would like to have someone to talk to about this. But I think it's just going to be you and me, Crit. Where is it? I got so many DMs, I can't find you, Crit. Oh, well, there you are. You were right in front of me the whole time. So there you go, Crit. I just sent you the StreamYard in case you wanted to join. He says, I'm listening, working on a script right now. Okay, I gotcha. So yeah, like I said, this episode had a really weak premiere. And unfortunately, I think it was one of those situations where the premiere kind of had to be weak. And of course, Phil shows up saying, why are the curtains behind you lopsided? They've been like that this whole time. I never touched those. So they've been like that. But anyways, you have to consider what's happened with Star Wars leading up to The Mandalorian Season 3. This wasn't just a transition straight from Mando Season 2 to Season 3. We had to get through the Book of Boba Fett. And for those that don't know, I was not a big fan of the Book of Boba Fett. How in that show, they basically undid, as far as how it relates specifically to Mando, they basically undid the Chapter 16 ending, the Season 2 finale. You know how Luke comes in and takes Grogu to train as a Jedi? They get rid of that and just reunite him with Mando. And so they kind of had to basically episode 1 of season 3 kind of had to be like okay, here's a bit of a refresher of what's happened since season 2, but at the same time, here's a little bit of what you missed from those that didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, which, by the way, I'm jealous. So I feel like they would have gotten away with that if the season 3 premiere did the same thing that the season 2 and season 1 premieres did. And that is, and I've said this before, and that is if the season 3 premiere ended with some sort of grand reveal that basically is the hook to get you invested in the rest of the season. And there really wasn't that for the season 3 premiere. And again, go back and look at the season 2 premiere of Mando, and especially the season 1 premiere, because when season 1 premiered, it ended with the reveal of Grogu, of Baby Yoda, as we knew him back then. The season 2 premiere ended with the 100% confirmation that Boba Fett was alive. And both of those, at least speaking for myself, got me really excited to try and to find out what was going to happen next through this season. And there really wasn't anything like that. The only thing close to that we got that happened in the middle of the episode was the reveal of the Purrgil, which I can now say, having seen the whole season through, that has literally done nothing. They did nothing with that this entire season. Ever says, I'm tired of Trek and Star Wars. I think you should watch the Ted Lasso guys. Well, dude, I'm sorry that you're tired of Star Trek and Star Wars. I was literally about to reach for my drink over here, but I remembered it was over here. And what was I reaching for? My deodorant. Anyways, so that's something that I think kind of got the season off on the wrong foot, at least for me. And then the reveal that I thought should have happened in the first episode didn't end up happening until the second, which was the reveal of a live mythosaur, which that was cool. And I do think episode 2 was better than episode 1. And that, in a way, kind of transitions into one of the good points that I have regarding Mando Season 3, that being Mandos being Mandos. And what I mean by that is seeing Mandalorian culture in a more large-scale degree, because we've seen, we saw the Mandalorians hiding in their covert in season 1, and that one glimpse of them fighting off all the bounty hunters in season 1, but that's really it, and it was just like a quick snapshot. Season 2, we got even less of that. We had Bo-Katan and her team, which we'll talk about them later, but our focus was always just more on Mando himself. But in this season, we see a lot of Mandalorians, and we get a greater taste for what Mandalorian culture is like, sort of more on a large scale, just, what their daily life is like. seeing them train the younglings, seeing them operate in hunting parties, just in general, seeing them interact with each other. And I think that they portrayed that very well. And Phil says, is that a Coke Zero? Why? Yes, it is a Coke Zero. And I'll tell you this, Phil, I'm only drinking this because we're out of normal Coke. And I had to have something like this. And I'll tell you, and I'll go one further and say, Coke Zero tastes a heck of a lot better than Diet Coke. And he also says, I'm giving you thumbs up because your pillows are somewhat fluffed to military standards. All right, thank you. So, yeah, just seeing the Mandalorians interact with each other and getting a more large-scale feel for Mandalorian culture, I did enjoy that, especially when all of the people that were originally siding with Bo-Katan that left her, when the two different cultures and clans came together, that was really cool. From the way that they butted heads to the way that they put those differences aside to ultimately, retake Mandalore. Not to mention the one episode where all of them go back to Navarro to help free it from pirates, and just seeing all the teams of Mandos on the ground operating like an actual military. I really enjoyed that. So that was definitely something that I chalk up as a good. And then the last thing that, at least that I could think of to talk about in the good, is, and some might disagree with me on this, Bo-Katan's rise to power. How she starts off pretty much down in the doldrums here in the beginning of the season, where she's by herself just in her palace, and she's sulking. She doesn't even want to see Mando anymore because in her mind he has stolen her birthright, the ability to claim the Darksaber and rule Mandalore. But she slowly comes around and starts to get more and more involved with Mando. Although they don't make it romantic, not saying that is a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just making mention of it. And she becomes accepted in the Mandalorian culture, at least the clan that Din Djarin came from. So from there, what was really interesting, and I've seen some people complain about this, but at the same time, I can kind of understand why. Hold on one second. Jonathan just texted me something. I gotta play technical support for Jonathan's lightsaber. So anyways, one of the things that they chose to do with Bo-Katan is, after she had been accepted into the clan that Din Djarin had come from, at first when she was there, she, kind of for lack of anywhere else to go, stayed at the expense of having to always keep her helmet on. But at one point, the armorer pulled her aside and says, take off your helmet, because basically giving her special permission to walk around with her helmet removed, because she's walked both sides of Mandalorian culture. And I get it, they could probably have explained that a little bit better, but I think if any character was going to do that, it would have been Bo-Katan. And then from there, she gets the Darksaber, which we'll talk about that in just a moment, and ultimately leads the charge to retake Mandalore, and she eventually gets what she wants. She is the leader now of all Mandalorians. Now, some have complained that in doing this, Bo-Katan has ultimately stolen the spotlight from Din Djarin. That the show started with him as the main focus, and this season basically took that from him. And that is a valid complaint, I do agree. But at the same time, the way they did it, I'm trying to think of how to say this. I'm okay with the way that they did this. They could have done it in a way that was far worse and far more insulting to Din Djarin, at least from my point of view. So others might disagree, and that is fine. But unfortunately, that is where the good stuff ends for me. So let's go to the bad. And the first thing that I want to mention is the fact that the show is inconsistent in quality. And I'm going to add to this point also that it is incredibly all over the place. And this is something that unfortunately got carried over from the Book of Boba Fett. So remember when that show was airing, Book of Boba Fett? We get 5 episodes deep into that show, and all of a sudden, we have an episode focused completely on Mando, and Boba Fett doesn't even show up. Next episode comes around, it's yet another episode about Mando, and we only see Boba Fett show up. He doesn't say a word. Unfortunately, that's something that kind of gets carried over to Mando Season 3. Except instead of whole episodes being devoted to other characters, we get chunks of episodes developed to other characters. Now, granted, it's chunks and not as bad as having an entire episode devoted to, say, Carson Teva, the pilot guy. But it's still a little bit jarring as someone that was used to, in the first 2 seasons, having the episodes largely just focused on Mando and Grogu. Now, I said back then, and I've said multiple times since, that what initially got me out of watching Mando was the Dr. Pershing episode. Real quick. Nova Vaughn chalks it up to chunks of meh. Nova, would you like to come on here and talk about this with me? If you do, check your Discord. I'm gonna send you the link. And you know what? I'll throw you the link too, Phil, if you want. Though I know what you're gonna say. By the way, guys, speaking of Nova Vaughn, he did something really nice for me the other day, or really nice for the channel, rather. And he made a shout-out video, kind of the same as what Mr. Ryan Roger Athay did for us. And he made a shout-out video for the Star Wars guys. And he said some very nice things. And, dude, I saw it earlier. You read my comment. But, again, I will say thank you for doing that. I really do appreciate that. And, yeah, you did good. And I will also say that right now, at time of this recording, Nova Vaughn is only at 68 subscribers. And there's 460 of us here. Why doesn't he have 468 subs right now? So everyone that's watching this, please go subscribe to Nova Vaughn. I'm going to put his channel in the chat. Grab that real quick. So yeah, here is Nova Vaughn's channel. As I said, there's 460 of us. There's only 68 on his channel. Let's make that... Okay, I'm blanking out on the math. That would be 528 if I did my math right. 460 plus 68. All right, you guys are going to make fun of me. I'm pulling out the calculator. Yep, 528. I was right. Okay. Had to make sure. But getting back to what I was talking about, when I say that the story is inconsistent, what I really mean by that is the episodes are inconsistent in quality. The episodes will go from okay to good to really good to terrible to okay to pretty good to okay is what I mean. Like, let's go this episode by episode, and I'll give you just a kind of snap ranking for each episode. So episode 1, The Apostate, the debut. That one I give a good 6 out of 10. Episode 2, I give that one an 8 out of 10. Chapter 19, I give a 5.5 out of 10. Chapter 20, 7. Chapter 21, 9. Chapter 22, 3. Chapter 23, 6.5. Chapter 24, also 6.5. And my guests have showed up. So let's get Nova Vaughn in here. What's up?
What's going on?
I'm doing well. And real quick, Ghost Rider says, Pro, did you catch the tail end of Valiant stream? Pro gave some insight on that. I did not, but I'm sure he did. So thank you for showing up, Nova Vaughn. It's a shame that Phil McCracken didn't get the memo. I'm just kidding. Yes, he did.
Am I getting paid for this?
What do you mean? Are you getting paid for this?
That's my question. Am I getting paid for this?
I'll send you a can of Coke Zero.
No, thank you. A Dr. Pepper, strawberries and cream, then you've got something there, but no Coke Zero.
Yeah. So, anyways, how are you gentlemen doing tonight?
Waiting on dinner, so it's all good. I'll be eating as we stream. Be doing a stream meeting.
I gotcha, and that's fine. And dude, again, I know I said it earlier, but for real, thank you for doing that shout out video. I really did
enjoy and appreciate that. You deserve that first dibs.
Well, thank you, man.
I got a few other people in mind in future videos.
You know, there's a guy down here that has a channel you should do a shout out video for.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think you could make a good video on Release McCracken. Black Dragon shows up and he says, "Send him a Bud Light." How about it, Phil? You want a Bud Light?
I want a Bud Light. Yeah. Okay.
So, anyways, Phil, how about you? How are you tonight?
Doing good.
Okay. You do have a little bit of background noise, just letting you know. Are you on your laptop?
No. Yep, laptop.
Okay, would you be willing to move to your desktop?
Am I getting paid for this?
You will get paid for this.
You're more difficult sometimes than a woman. What's up with that?
Just send him a case of Buster Bars. He'll be fine.
Yes, I could do that. So, like I said, we're talking about Mando Season 3, and I'm not going episode by episode. I'm talking about the season as a whole. I've already given my 2 good points, and I'll go ahead and go back through those so you guys can shoot on them. The 2 good things that I said is I liked the fact that we got to see Mandos basically being Mandos and getting a more broad spectrum view of Mandalorian culture. So what do you guys have to say about that?
That was intriguing. I did think that was somewhat interesting, but again, it's like as I stated in my reviews, it's like okay, there were some great episodes. There was a couple of great episodes, but it was kind of mediocre, and then there's those 2 episodes that were just god awful.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Phil, what about you?
Well, I didn't see The Mandalorian Season 3. I only saw tidbits. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I could see that I could actually say I like is Katie Sackhoff. Other than that, yeah, it's crap.
It's
It's
funny you
crap.
it's funny you say that, Phil, because Katie Sackhoff and Bo-Katan was my other good point. I actually did like how they showed her rise to power. Even though, yes, I do agree with the argument that we basically had another bait and switch pulled on us where the Mandalorian stopped being about Din Djarin and started being about her. I still enjoyed it. Even for at least from the standpoint of they could have done it in a far, far more insulting way than they did with, other things.
But as you were saying about the Mandalorian culture, we
Mhm.
still got more of the Mandalorian culture in the EU than we ever did in 3 seasons of the Mando.
Oh, I know. I
Uh,
know.
you know what? They never even talk about the purpose of the different colors. You get it in the EU, they tell you what each color means. You get none of that here. None of that. What's the purpose of having different colors on their armor? Nothing.
I agree. There are still questions that we have that they haven't yet addressed, and they probably won't address it, at least not in the same way as the EU did. And we will talk about all of that later on in this stream. But but that kind of is, like I said, is where the good stuff ends for me, and the bad, as I said earlier, the bad is that we had a weak premiere.
Oh, it was exactly.
And like I said, they probably could have. Like I said, it kind of had no choice but to be what it was, because not only did you have to catch everyone up from Mando season 2, but you had to also fill in the gaps for anyone that didn't watch Book of Boba Fett. And they would have gotten away with it if we had some sort of big reveal at the end, like we did with the last 2 Mando season premieres. Because remember, season 1, you had Grogu's reveal. Season 2, you had the reveal that Boba Fett was still alive. Nothing even close to that in the season 3 premiere.
Yeah.
And then what I was talking about just before you guys came in, and you'll definitely agree with me on this one, Nova, is inconsistent quality between episodes.
Yeah.
Because it went from okay to pretty good to, again, just kind of okay to kind of sucky to, again, good to really good to terrible to just kind of okay throughout the finish.
Yep. Definitely.
What's up with the weak space battles in The Mandalorian or in all Disney Star Wars, but especially
Yes.
in The Mandalorian? You have a battle for Mandalore, and there's not much of a battle.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, as much as I love that space battle between Din and Vane and the other pirates, there was no resistance. There was, he wasn't. It was too easy of a fight for Din.
By the way, hello to the Matt Cave, who says loving the new channel logo. Thank you, man. That I'll be explaining all of the new stuff that has been popping up today. And by the way, Matt Cave, I sent you also the link to the disc to join the stream if you're interested and available. So yeah. Again, just go back to the first 2 seasons. Now, granted, not every episode of the first 2 seasons was perfect. For example, I wasn't the biggest fan of Mandalorian Season 1, Episode 5. I also was not a biggest fan of Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 2, the one with the frog lady on the ice planet with the spiders.
Yeah.
But there was still a more consistent level of quality between each episode for Mando seasons 1 and 2. And here's the thing, as much as I despise Book of Boba Fett, there was more consistent quality in Book of Boba Fett than there was here. Now, granted, Book of Boba Fett consistently sucked, in my opinion, but I'd rather it consistently suck than just be all over the place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, okay, if they were going to focus those 2 episodes on Din Djarin in the Book of Boba Fett, why not make those 2 episodes chapter 17 and chapter 18?
Yeah, like here's the thing. Take those 2 episodes of Mando out, put them here at the beginning of season 3, and you have, at least in my opinion, what would be a good season premiere. The reveal that the Mando, having removed his helmet, would have to go to Mandalore to purify himself. Now, granted, it still wouldn't be as good of a reveal as the reveal of Grogu or Boba, but it'd still be something.
Yeah.
That
And
to
then,
me is cheesy story writing to compensate for a bigger issue. And that's because the actor, quote unquote, that plays Din Djarin wanted more face time, but didn't get enough face time. So really, right now, they did that. Oh, he has to put the helmet back on. They have to put the helmet back on because he's off doing another show. The only thing he's doing now for The Mandalorian is voice acting. That's it. And the whole purpose of the mask on, the mask off now is so that they don't have to show his face.
yeah,
To me, from the very get go, it's stupid. This whole thing about the mask coming off, we didn't even have that even in the Clone Wars.
no, we
You've
didn't.
seen them all take their helmet off.
Yep.
Yeah, and the
It doesn't make no sense.
explanation that we got in Mando season 2 as to why that is, that was just his particular cult that was more extremist. That worked, but at the same time, it was a big character development thing that he took his helmet off for Grogu at the end of Mando season 2, and that's yet another thing that they undid from that episode, which I still think is a good episode.
Yeah.
I think it was, like I said, written in place there because of Pablo, because he wanted to have his face revealed. He wanted more time without the helmet, and they did that for him, but it wasn't enough. So there, I think I don't have no proof of this. Just my speculation that the way they solved it was okay. You do your thing. We'll just call you in to do the voiceover, and that's it. And
Right.
how do they do it? Oh, we gotta make him purify himself so he can put the helmet back on. He could have told her, look, if it was all that big deal, he could have just said, "Did you ever take your helmet off?" That's all he had to say was no. Who's going to rat him out? Who's going to rat him out?
That,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that does make sense. The only reason he even said anything at all was is because he felt like his honor meant too much to him to lie about it, which,
Yeah.
as someone
I mean,
that detests lying, I can understand that.
the other thing that does not make sense is when he first gets the dark saber, he's able to wield it no problem. No problem. Then all of a sudden, now we get him. He acts like it's like a battle axe or something that he can't even pick up.
Yeah, which again, we'll talk about the dark saber here in just a moment. I want to go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Phil, but I do want to go ahead and move on to the next point. That is Jack Black and Lizzo. I nearly labeled this one as an ugly point, not just bad, but I decided no, I didn't want to go that far. But yeah, Jack Black and Lizzo. I saw everyone's reaction to those scenes that those two were in, and I knew it was going to be bad. I did not expect it would be that bad. What really enraged me about that scene was A, The fact that Lizzo, say what you want about her music, say what you want about her body positivity activism. That's neither here nor there. She cannot act.
No, she could not.
She cannot act. I have seen high school plays with better acting chops than what Lizzo showed in that episode. But what really set me off was when she called Grogu to her as if he was a cat. Like literally holding a fish up and going, why? He is just as much a sentient being as you are. How are you going to treat him like an animal? All right, what is this?
It's going to be awful.
Play that one more time.
Okay.
But trust me, it's going to be awful.
Yes. By the way, can you send me a copy of that clip so I can plug it into my StreamYard?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just I'll send you a couple of occasional clips here as we go through the show.
Yeah, like here, I'll play one of my own. Let me go down to it. Here it is.
It stinks.
Yeah. And then Jack Black is basically being, I would equate this performance of Jack Black. Now, to his credit, Jack Black can act. You don't believe me? Go watch Kung Fu Panda. Go watch the Mario Brothers. He's done some good stuff.
The Pick of Destiny? Come on now. You didn't mention the Pick of Destiny? What's the matter with you?
I've never seen it.
What?
All right, what is
Honestly,
this?
It was blah, blah, blah to me.
I'll play it again.
Honestly, it was blah, blah, blah to me.
It was blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree. But here's the thing. I would equate what Jack Black did in that episode of Mando to what Jim Carrey did as the Riddler in Batman Forever, where he's just being the absolute worst, most annoying, over-the-top version of himself. And it is just like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
And again, I said this before on other people's streams, I think. But just the fact that Jack Black and especially Lizzo were even there at all, it is just incredibly immersion breaking. Black Dragon says, what you're talking about is voice acting, not act. Okay, you're right. That's on me. But here's the thing. Even in live action, Jack Black has done some good stuff. Like, for example, Tropic Thunder.
Pick a Destiny.
Okay, Pick a Destiny. I'll take your word for it, Phil. But anyways, yeah, like I said, this was his worst performance that I've seen. And the fact that he and Lizzo were even there, to me, this is going to sound mean, but I think they should not have been cast in Star Wars because of how famous they are. Now, I get it. You know, everyone wants to be in Star Wars. I get it. But I do believe that there are certain people that are just too famous to be in Star Wars, because no matter what you dress them in, unless you cannot see their face at all, you're going to immediately know, oh, hey, that's that actor. I've seen him in something else. But again, cast your mind back to 1977, and you saw the first Star Wars movie for the first time, and you see Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher as Luke, Han, and Leia, respectively. Granted, they've been in some other movies before Star Wars, but they weren't that well known. So, Phil, when you saw Star Wars for the first time, did you see Mark Hamill up there and be like, oh, that's Mark Hamill. I recognize him from, for example, Corvette Summer?
To be honest, my first thing to see Mark Hamill, and I did recognize him when he was in Star Wars as Mark Hamill, was when he played in a TV episode with the guy who played Apollo. It was a police show, and the guy who played Apollo was like an assistant cop, and Mark Hamill was the juvenile delinquent. So you got Apollo and Luke Skywalker. But yeah, when I saw him on there, I was like, yeah, that's that dude from that TV show. So yeah, I did recognize him.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford, I did recognize him because of that. What was that movie he did for George Lucas before?
American Graffiti.
American Graffiti. The one that I didn't recognize was Carrie Fisher. I didn't recognize Carrie.
Okay. Well, there you go. And here's the thing: the things that you did recognize Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford from, they were lesser known things. But Jack Black's one of the most recognizable actors ever. And Lizzo is one of the most recognizable music artists ever.
Never heard of her.
You at least get what I'm saying, right, Nova?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, and I'll even do you one better. Fast forward to the prequels. Did you, Nova, was that Liam Neeson you were watching on the screen, or was that Qui-Gon Jinn?
It was Liam to me, but he did a good job of making the character believable.
Right. Like,
my first thing was I'm thinking Darkman's in Star Wars. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Darkman.
I have not. I feel like I'm not explaining myself very well here. What I'm trying to say is they could have done a much, much better job, both Jack Black and Lizzo, and the costume department around them. They could have done a much, much better job in making those characters feel authentic to Star Wars. And Jack Black, they kind of did, at least with what he was wearing. But again, I still recognized him as Jack Black. Lizzo, on the other hand, that literally looked like one of those stage costumes that she would wear to her concerts, complete with the weird headdress and everything. So the worst part about...
Would you say that, I know you didn't mention him yet, but Christopher Lloyd's character, I thought they didn't do him any justice neither.
I was legitimately sad. Yeah, I got it, by the way, Nova. I was kind of sad watching Christopher Lloyd because the dude looks old and tired. And credit to him if he still wants to take acting roles. But I don't know, man. He looks like he needs to retire.
Surprised he didn't say this phrase.
Great Scott! Great Scott! Great Scott!
Yes. But yeah, watching Christopher Lloyd, that was something. I do agree with you, Phil, that they did him kind of dirty. But that one didn't make me angry so much as it did make me sad.
I personally think these three, if we want to call them cameos or guest appearances, was brought in there for quick attention. That's it.
Yes.
You know? I wasn't there to improve whatever episode they were doing, just to say, oh, look, Black is on there, or Christopher Lloyd's on there, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to get, I don't want to say using a bait to get you to watch it, but pretty much that's what they were doing. Bait to get you to click.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And then also the worst thing, and I'm talking specifically about Lizzo's casting here. Now, I've seen people post Lizzo saying in an interview that she had been a massive Star Wars fan all her life. She had watched it with her dad, and therefore getting a Star Wars role was a dream come true for her. And if indeed that is true, then good for you. I'm glad you achieved a lifelong dream. But the fact that whoever it was that made the decision to cast her, whether it was Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, or whoever made that decision knowing that basically they made that decision wanting to basically making the statement that we're marketing Star Wars now to only one specific audience, the type of people that are hardcore in love with Lizzo, eat up everything that she puts out music-wise, agree with all of the activism stuff that she does. And I'm not one of those people.
Nope.
Yeah.
There's a fourth actor we kind of skipped over. The Mr. Jar Jar Binks guy.
Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, that's one that I forgot to mention in the good category.
Well, why would you
So-
say it's any good? Look.
Well,
I never hated
hear me
the
out.
actor.
May I?
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's why I say that's good. Because it's good for a couple reasons. Number one, it's Ahmed Best being played in a role that, at least from what I've seen, universally everyone likes. But number two, just that whole scene of showing how Grogu was rescued from Order 66 and seeing Kelleron Beck managing to take down all of the clone troopers that that other Jedi weren't able to do. I liked it as someone that is an unapologetic simp for the prequels and the prequel era Jedi. I loved it.
Well, let's get it right. And I know there's a lot of people that say, well, people hated the actor. There might have been a couple people that were a little bit out there that blamed the actor. I will say majority, 98% of the people didn't blame the actor for what was written in the script. They hated Jar Jar. They didn't necessarily hated the actor. Now, there might have been a couple people that went on the extreme, but as far as Jar Jar, everybody had a right to hate that character.
Oh, yeah.
I hated that character. I remember going there. It was so irritating that I could, if they could cut him out of the prequel, the very first one, the episode 1, it wouldn't have hurt anything. And I know they put him in there for comic relief, but it was overdone. It was way overdone. So,
Yeah.
no. And then bring
What's
him
the
back
problem?
now, I can understand to a degree. But to bring him back as, oh, this is the guy that saved Grogu, I would have been more happy if it would have been something like R2 that did it or somebody else that did it. Why couldn't it be Jack Castanew? That makes more sense. She was there.
I can agree with that argument. You know, yes, it would have been cool and perhaps more impactful to see someone else that we know do that. I agree. But that being said, at least again speaking for myself, I'm happy at least in that case with what we did get. And I do want to say a special hello to the legendary Tron. Thank you for joining. And with that, I want to move on to the final point, the final bad points regarding Mando Season 3, and that is how the Darksaber, in my opinion, was mishandled. Because go back to when Din got his hands on the Darksaber, and he tried to hand over the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and she would not take it because of what Moff Gideon said, that you can't just hand over the Darksaber. It has to be won in combat. Otherwise, her rule would be illegitimate. That was an interesting premise, and I was looking forward to see how that would pay off in this season. And they pay it off in the most lackluster way possible. Now, yes, it does, at least to me, make logical sense, the reasoning behind it, but it's still unsatisfying. So let me explain. You said it already, Phil, and this started in Book of Boba Fett, continued into this season. He fought with the Darksaber as if the thing weighed a ton. Like, he was really, really
Yep.
unwieldy with how he swung it. In fact, again, in that
He
Book of
cut
Boba Fett
himself with
episode,
it.
yeah, he cut himself bad. But then in episode 2 of Mando season 3, Bo-Katan gets her hands on it after Mando gets disarmed by that weird robot monster thing that can take itself apart and puts it. I don't know what that thing's called. And she fights with it like she's been training with it all her life. But then, Mando gets the dark saber back, barely uses it. In fact, it's hard to see sometimes that it's even on his belt at all. But then in that episode that had Jack Black and Lizzo in it, we see the scene where Bo-Katan tries to reconcile with the Mandos that were following her that left, and they reject her at first because you don't have the Darksaber. Your rule is illegitimate. And then Mando just speaks up and says, then I'm going to give you the Darksaber back because she rescued me on Mandalore from an enemy that disarmed me of the Darksaber. So she then used the Darksaber to defeat the enemy that defeated me. Therefore, the Darksaber is rightfully hers. And so again, even though I liked how Bo-Katan evolved as a character, that was a major fumble. And then after all that build-up, having Moff Gideon in his, I'll admit, cool Mando armor, crush the Darksaber as if it was nothing, and then just toss it aside, again, it's just really, really unsatisfying. Like, what was the point of building up the Darksaber as this important thing to begin with?
Right. Yeah.
Well, for me, and I have to say this, this still does not make any sense. We're at a point in the Star Wars universe with the Mandalorian that it's the New Republic. The Empire is down. Let's just say down to 25%. It's on the back foot, and out of all their resources and everything they're going to spend effort and time, they're going to spend all their effort and time on a bombed out planet called Mandalore. Doesn't make any sense. If they had any resources at all, they'd be using it on a planet that was far more better shape, more strategic than bombed out, blown up Mandalore. I mean, the only people that really care at this point about Mandalore and getting it back is the Mandalorians. And look at it this way. Put yourself in a militaristic point of view and looking at it. If the Mandalorians took over Mandalore, does the Empire really care? There's nothing there right now. It's going to take them years, if not decades, to build it up to where it was even halfway what it was. Okay? So strategically, it doesn't play any point for the Empire that's at a weaker state to waste time, effort, and resources on that planet. Other than Moff Gideon trying to use it as a hiding place to make clones. Pretty much that idea was stolen from the duology.
Heir to the Empire.
No. Visions of the Future. When they go looking for Thrawn's in the Outer Rim, not the Outer Rim, in the unknown regions, and they come across the Hand of Thrawn, where he has hidden on a base a clone of himself. It supposedly was supposed to be set for 10 years after his return in case he died. Hate to be a spoiler, but that's where they got that. And the exact same thing that happened to his one clone happened to all of Moff Gideon's clones. They destroy it by flooding the basement, pretty much. So that was a ripoff. To me, the so-called Disney, we're doing away with the EU, and everything they're doing is what? Bringing
people back. Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense. And like I said, I understand they need to make something big for the Mandalorian, but the Empire, like I said, if it was if you have a military force that's on the retreat and it's got a restricted on the amount of resources, they're not going to waste the resources on protecting a planet that's utterly worthless. Just doesn't make
Yeah,
any sense. Doesn't. Oh, we're going
you're
to
right.
send Praetorian guards. Okay, we're going to send there to protect what? You have to understand when they showed you that video clip of them standing around having their meeting, discussing Thrawn. They're the warlords.
Yes.
Okay? That's the warlords. They're not going to waste resources to protect Moff Gideon's cloning facility, which isn't going to benefit any of them as a whole, but the one individual. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Make it a battle of Nar Shaddaa. That would make more sense. A planet that has value, has resources, and isn't bombed to Kingdom Come. The whole thing for the fight for Mandalore is ridiculous. I mean, even in a way, they even contradict themselves because the New Republic even there says we're not wasting resources on that, and that's the New Republic. Which technically, Old Republic, okay, Mandalore technically was part of the Old Republic, but it was a neutral system.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, we're not wasting resources. If their whole goal, the New Republic, is to drive the Empire out, for them, since they're the larger ruling part of the galaxy, they have the resources to drive the Empire out of Mandalore. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The whole conflict doesn't make any sense.
Sadly,
Sorry,
you're right.
but I just had to throw it out there.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of is a good place to bring all this conversation about Mando season 3 to a close and say overall, at least to me, Mando season 3 was okay. But it was a massive, massive, massive step down from Mando seasons 1 and 2.
Definitely.
And maybe I'm stuck in the past and have too high expectations, but just simply okay is not good enough for Star Wars, right?
At least for this show, I mean, it's like this was their show that they wanted to focus on. You know, they wanted to, you know, it got good ratings, but you know, they were willing to sacrifice getting merch over a good story. You know, that's why they kept Grogu, because he sells
Exactly.
on the shelf.
Exactly. And even though, and I can't believe I'm saying this because back when this show was first airing, Mando season 1, I was all on board with the idea of Grogu and continued to be on board with him through season 2 because I thought, okay, we're building to something here. What are we building to now? At the end of this show, it's just Mando kicking back in his hut and Grogu out in the pond playing with frogs in the Force. What is there to build to now? Thrawn? Okay, Thrawn's coming, but it's not going to be as good as the heir to the Empire, I can tell you that.
Two different versions of Thrawn. There's two different night and day. The Thrawn that you get from current Disney Star Wars to the Thrawn that we get in the EU. And if people think they're giving us the Thrawn from the EU, I'm sorry. I hate to say this. Disney threw the biggest bait to Star Wars fans when they brought Luke back. That was nothing more to placate people. And now the placation is gone. They're not going to do nothing with Luke. There's nothing in anything they have mentioned in the future of Star Wars that has anything to do with Luke.
And and can I cut in real quick and say this, Phil? That's another thing. I didn't think of this at first, but that's another thing that you can chalk into the bad category. No mention outside of vague alluding to him. No mention whatsoever that Luke Skywalker made an appearance in Mando season at the end of Mando season 2. Moff Gideon was scared enough of Luke to where he was considering taking the coward's way out at the end of Mando season 2. Not one mention outside of, again, vaguely alluding to it. Not one mention of Luke this whole entire season.
Nope.
I will hate to put it in this category, but I don't see any other one that you can put it in. Star Wars is entering, well, not entering, is there with Doctor Who. It has gone past the point of no return. The difference is Doctor Who was a fast, painful death. Star Wars is a slow bleeding out. And you don't have to believe me when they come out and they showed you all the things they're going to come out with from another Ray movie. Like, we need that. Like, we need another hole in the head. To everything that you've seen, okay, what is in there for the average Star Wars fan wanting to watch?
Nothing that I can think of.
And Endor does everything. They contradict everything they said. We don't do deaths. Guess what? The very first episode, he does a headshot. That's something Boba Fett should have had, not Endor. Okay?
Yep.
I'm sorry, that's a fact. Star Wars there's two different Star Wars. There's George Lucas's Star Wars and there's Disney Star Wars. And they're not meshing. And they don't want to mesh. Look, if Disney wanted to do a totally clean slate, they could have went 1,000 years in the future and they could have done that. Or they could have went 1,000 years in the past and done that. No, they made sure along their way they destroyed George Lucas's Star Wars. People from the original OT trilogy pretty much thank you, goodbye. Thank you, goodbye. But here, you talk about merch. Disney's merch, since they bought Star Wars, is down to 30%. 30% is what their merch is worth.
And it's not even that good. Like, speaking about action figures.
Let's just say, for sake of argument, season 1 and 2 of Mandalorian.
Real quick, Phil, I do want to say a special hello to Ted from Ted's Nerd World. Thanks for joining.
If season 1 and season 2 was that great, and they were doing the merch for Yoda, or Baby Yoda, or Grogu, whatever they call him, how come we ain't got a video game?
That is true.
How come we ain't got board game, puzzles? I don't see none of that. If this was under a Lucasfilm, you would have got a video game. At least a video game. You would have got puzzles. You would have got games. You would have got T-shirts. Yes, there's a little Yoda, Baby Yoda, Grogu stuff out there, but it ain't much. It's not much. So when people say, "Oh, they're doing it for the merch," there's not much merch out there, and everything they're doing for merch, if you notice this, they might do 1 or 2 from Disney Star Wars, but most of it, the Black Series they call it. What is it?
I'm wearing original trilogy merch now.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm at a point to say you can take a look at Disney, and if this is the rate they're going, and the next episodes and movies and TV shows crash and burn, there's no hope for Star Wars. There's no hope. I'm sorry. You can put them in the category of Doctor Who, and you can go speak to Doctor Who fans, and they will tell you how bad it is.
And
it is what it is.
Sadly, Phil, you're right. But here's the thing with me. There is still, and likely always will, be a part of me that refuses to accept that. There will always be a part of me that has at least a passing interest in all future Star Wars content coming forward, and a small piece of my mind that will always say, I hope it's good. When I know...
understand that. I mean, people, it's like, I'll put it as an analogy. People like to look back at their childhood, growing up and when they're young. But guess what? Ain't many people going to be able to, even if they could, go back and relive your childhood. Once it's done, it's done.
I know.
That's how these. Like I said, I love Star Wars to death. For me, it's episodes 1 through 6, the original 2D Clone Wars, and the Clone Wars, and that's it. Rebels I can take or leave. The rest of the stuff you can keep it. No, no, no. I'm sorry, no. And they're
Well,
not the like I said, and I told people, and you heard me before, Paul. When everybody was singing the praises, they brought Luke back. Star Wars is saved. Filoni and Favreau. Look at today. Filoni
and
and Favreau.
real quick, let's talk about Filoni and Favreau for a second. Because what you were just saying, Phil, everyone's singing the praises of Filoni and Favreau. Count me as one of them. And here I am now eating humble pie because not only was I singing their praises, but and I'm not speaking ill about anyone that promulgated this stuff, I bought into the rumors hook, line, and sinker that there was going to be a retcon that erased the sequel trilogy. And yet, it started with Book of Boba Fett, granted, but this season put the final nail in the coffin. As I said earlier, all roads do indeed lead to the sequel trilogy. We are
More
getting
so after that Star Wars thing. What was it called? Just recently, where they announced all these upcoming shows and movies.
that's
That's
celebration.
proof right there. They don't have look. Favreau and Filoni. First of all, Favreau. He does not work for Lucasfilms. He was sent there by the past and current guy that's running Disney. That's his boss, not anybody in Disney or Lucasfilms. Filoni is number 3, not number 2, not number 1. He is number 3. That means there's Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm sorry I don't know the other lady that's ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he gets his marching orders.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And look, a couple years ago, there was the giant storyboard, if you remember, where they had things were
Yes,
written.
I do remember it.
No wars in Star Wars. Well, yeah, you got the Mandalorian, Battle of Mandalore. That wasn't much of a battle.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have dinosaurs. Well, we got that twice. What do you want to call the mythosaur? It's a dinosaur, right?
It is.
Pretty much everything you saw on that storyboard is still in effect today. That's your Disney Star Wars.
You're right.
Where's our X-Wing battles? Where's our TIE fighter battles? Where's our Star Destroyers? That's part, look, that's part of Star Wars. That's as much as part of Star Wars as seeing the Battlestar Galactica in Battlestar Galactica. Take the Battlestar Galactica out of Battlestar Galactica. Do you have a show? You don't have a show. Look, that space battles is what put Star Wars on the map. You can watch A New Hope, but I want to tell you that even as a kid, you can forget everything, but you'll not forget the Battle of Yavin. That's what made Star Wars. That, in particular, put Star Wars on the map. The Battle of Yavin. And if people don't believe that, look at what happens when you watch Empire Strikes Back. What is the first thing they do? The Battle of Hoth. Right off the get-go, you have a battle. Can't say people didn't like the Battle of Hoth. Everybody I knew that watched Star Wars loved the Battle of Hoth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're missing. You know, I don't mean to ramble, but look, The Mandalorian was intentionally supposed to be the movie of Boba Fett, and then Disney did that change. Why does he get to call himself Mando? He's not the only Mandalorian.
Well, hold on. Time out, Phil. He doesn't call himself that. We've been calling him that this whole time.
No. Mr. Carl Weathers calls him Mando.
He only calls him that because he doesn't know his real name.
That's fine. But they call him. Look, you served in the Navy, right? You were overseas, right? They
Yes.
didn't refer to you as the American, right? Because you weren't the only American.
No, they
Just like
called
he
me.
is
They
not
called.
the only Mandalorian.
I know, but I'm sorry, Phil, but I think you're reaching a bit too hard on that one.
Nah.
Yeah.
Well,
They could have came up with the name. I mean, it isn't that hard. Boba Fett was known as Boba Fett. You didn't see him refer to anything. He wasn't a son of the clone or either being called a Mandalorian. He was Boba Fett. Jango
okay.
Fett
Well,
was Jango Fett.
all right.
Everybody
We're
had
getting off track now, Phil.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
It's
but
okay.
we are. So, like I said, that's our final wrap up on Mando season 3, and you've kind of already kickstarted the next part of the conversation that I wanted to have, Phil, and that is now that Mando season 3 is in the rearview mirror, what's next? Specifically, what's next for us, the Star Wars guys? And you've kind of already hit like I said, Phil, you've already mentioned this, but even though I will always have some form of hope that at least what's coming next from Disney Star Wars will be good. It's a small hope, and I know deep down inside that yes, it has the chance to be good, but more than likely it's just going to be okay at best. But that being said, we're a Star Wars channel, and so I have a responsibility to you guys to cover that stuff. Now, I know there's other channels out there that are also covering it. And so trust me, I've said it before, Disney Star Wars is not going to be the only thing that we cover here. I'm still very much woefully unaware of just what happens in the expanded universe. So pretty much so that kind of leads into some of the new changes that you guys have seen. So first off, the easy one to explain is just the new design. That's just something that's something that I've wanted to do for a while. I liked the design that we had, but it kind of got played out in my opinion, and so we've adopted this new sort of synthwave aesthetic. I know a lot of other people are doing it, but I like it. So I'll real quick play again the new intro in case anyone missed it earlier. I'm actually really proud of this one. What do you guys think?
Oh man, I should have waited another day to do your shout out video.
It's all right, man. You didn't know. You didn't know. Phil, what do you think?
Honestly, it's good, but I still hold a thing for the Phantomology.
I know, and I want to make this clear. We are drastically changing things up here on the Star Wars guys, but we are still the Star Wars guys. This is not me pulling another Phantomology. Besides, I couldn't do that even if I wanted to. Baron Orman Tag has that name. I gave it to him, and I wish him the best with it. Ted likes the intro, and he also says Phil's not wrong. But that kind of gets into the big change that I wanted to make. So we've been doing this channel now for around 2 years, and our current subscriber count at time of this stream is 460 subscribers. And 460 is a lot. But I've been thinking the past couple weeks about this, and I feel like I have unintentionally stunted the channel's growth, and that if I hadn't made certain choices along the way, we'd be much further along toward monetization than where we are now. Like, you guys have heard me say this multiple times, that my mentality doing this channel up to this point has been, screw the mentality, I'm going to do what I want. And while yes, that has been fun in the short term, while that has been fun in the short term, I feel like it has drastically stunted my growth to now we're barely at a crawl. And so basically what this means is I'm going to now actually start caring and playing into the algorithm. So what does that mean? It means way, way less live streams and way more pre-recorded videos. And pre-recorded videos centered within how Mexican Ironman or Coach Nick told me, between 8 and 12 minutes long. You're going to see more YouTube shorts from me, even though, yes, YouTube shorts, let's be honest, they're just a ripoff of TikTok. But the biggest change is that anything that is not explicitly Star Wars will no longer be on this channel. And yes, that does include Tuesday Night Trek. So the stuff that's uploaded to this channel currently that's not Star Wars, I haven't yet decided what to do. I'm not gonna. I don't know yet whether or not I'm going to completely delete it or just unlist it and put it in a playlist. But from this moment on, anything that is not explicitly Star Wars will be going to the second channel, which, by the way, has been renamed from Master Paul's Music and Games to the Everything Else Guys. So, yes,
That's nice.
I know. Thank you. So yeah, the Everything Else Guys, I'm going to real quick put the link to that in the chat. So go subscribe there. That is going to be the new home of things like Tuesday Night Trek, Monster Mania. When me and Michael get around to doing our review of the Mario Brothers movie, that's going to go there. Gaming streams, that will stay the same. You know, nothing's going to change there. You'll still be able to pop in and harass me on Discord, Phil, about my pillows.
Sure. Pillows life matters.
Yes, and the occasional music stream will also go there too. But this channel, like I said, will be only Star Wars, because I found out the other day from talking privately with Nick from Echo Base Network that basically if you're a Star Wars channel and start doing things other than Star Wars, the algorithm hates that. And that's pretty much been what I've been doing here from day one, is calling myself a Star Wars channel, yet doing absolutely everything. And so
Right.
I'm putting a stop to that. This channel is only for Star Wars. Now, what's some things that you guys can be expecting from Star Wars here in the future? As I already said, I'm going to be diving into the EU. I've already done the Heir to the Empire trilogy. I'm currently reading through the Dark Empire comics, so I'll be doing reviews about that in pre-recorded video format. When I get into the next set of books, I'll be doing reviews on those. I don't know yet, chapter by chapter or one video every 2 chapters. That part I have to figure out. But instead of doing one big long book review, I mean, I'll still do that in a live stream. There will still be a Sunday live stream here, but just one live stream a week. But I will be doing book reviews chapter by chapter or so in pre-recorded video form. And of course, aside from that, I'll be talking about some of the Star Wars games, both canon and legends. And overall, it's going to be kind of going back to basics for me, going back to where we started 2 years ago. I will say one thing I will not be touching is Star Wars news and rumors. I have an absolute distaste for that now. So for those that enjoy that sort of thing, more power to you, but you will want to find another channel for that. I'm not touching Star Wars news and rumors.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, man.
Thanks. So that is sort of a rough layout of what's going to be happening here in the future.
So
what do
real
you guys
quick,
think?
so then when you're talking about your your movies that you have not seen yet, you're gonna do that on your other guy's channel.
Yes, that's going to the infamous movie list. That's moving to the Everything Else Guys channel. So yeah, what do you guys think?
No, do what you gotta do, man. It's your channel. It's kind of why I changed my format.
Mhm.
That's why I changed my name, and it's kind of you know
I don't know though. Cobra Disney Jedi had a certain ring to it.
it did. I like
But
it,
then again, who am I to talk? I rejected fandomology eventually. Phil,
but
what about you?
I still like the phenology, but you do what you got to do, my friend. It's your channels.
I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
And another thing that I'm going to be endeavoring to not outright do away with, but kind of wean myself off of is and this is not speaking anything ill of anyone that has joined me on this channel, but I have become too dependent on other people to help make the stream good. I've said this from day one. I don't script things. I have conversations. But I want to get back to being able to carry a stream or carry a pre-recorded video on my own. And I feel like I've lost that and have basically become too dependent on people like you, Phil, Cash, Crit, you, Nova, whenever you pop in. And I appreciate the help, and I will continue to invite you guys on, but there will be more and more times that I want to do things either on my own or just me and Michael. And Black
yeah.
Dragon says, I think you're an idiot, but that's because you're friends with people like me and Phil. Also, one other thing, and this is something that's kind of already happened, but I'll go ahead and make it official. Another thing that's going to happen with the gaming streams is that you're going to notice that I'm going to be hanging out with an entirely new group of people. So the other day on 420, you'll notice that we did a Mario Kart stream called the first ever 420 Mario Kart Kush Cup. The story behind that is I have joined a Facebook team that has actually just moved to Discord called Team Denki Kush. Yes, it's a play on Donkey Kong. The mascot is Donkey Kong with the green skin from Smash Brothers. And the team leader, his name's Dan. He likes to smoke a bit of the devil's lettuce sometimes. But anyways, my cousin got...
Hold up. Paul is joining a group of people calling themselves 420, right?
Yes.
And you do know what 420 is, right?
Yes.
And you went to church today, right?
Yes.
And did you explain to people that, family members, 420, right?
Hey, I may not partake myself, but I'm not going to judge anyone.
Guilty by association. Sometimes that still works.
I think that's a bit too legalistic, Phil.
Okay, but just remember, you don't know who else you're going to bring that's going to be watching this 420 group.
I know. But anyways, I say all of that, and Ted, he says, Paul, you surprised me. I say all of that, though, to say that you're going to see me doing more Nintendo-related stuff with these guys. You'll see me stream Smash Brothers more. You'll see me stream Mario Kart more. And I'm going to start also streaming Minecraft with these guys. And I have given them the invite to my Discord. And so you guys, anytime you hop in to Discord with me, might actually have a chance to talk with them. And yes, the devil's lettuce stuff aside, they're actually really cool people. And one of them's actually my cousin. So...
Is he the creator and founder of this 420 group?
He's the second in command, but he does not. But he does not smoke himself. I know that for a fact.
Okay. I'm just saying, but call me old. But you're hanging with a group that's calling themselves 420, but nobody smokes the 420.
Well, I only have one thing to say to that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, wrong picture.
Oh man. Oh.
It's okay. I think you need to get if there's a late night church service, I think you need to get there, Paul. You didn't do enough repenting in the first one. I think you need to go to another meeting.
If I do that, there's only going to be one question on my mind.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship? I said, what does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
And don't worry, clips like that aren't going anywhere.
Just remember the answer to that. Anything God wants.
Yes.
If he wants a starship, or if he wants a Lamborghini, or Paul's dirty automobile, it's whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I feel like doing a gaming stream, so we're going to end this stream, and we're going to go play some Skyrim, okay?
Sounds good.
Yep.
So in the meantime, thank you guys for watching. You guys are about to see a brand new outro video, too. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you are subscribed to Novavon. Make sure you're subscribed to Release McCracken, especially because very soon me and Phil, we haven't ironed out a date for this yet, but we're going to be taking a look at Kiss, just like we did with Black Sabbath. So, Phil, do you want to say a little bit about that before we go?
Since it's a large category dealing with Kiss and their albums, we are breaking it up in 3 parts. So the first part is the start, 1973, all the way to 1980.
Mm-hmm.
Second part will be from 1980 all the way to 1991. And then the third part would be from 92 to current day. So,
yes,
yeah, that is going to take a long time. Unfortunately, there's a lot of albums to go through. And I think Paul is on the 3rd album, if I'm correct.
Yes, 3rd.
So, yeah, we're getting there. And then once you get caught up to the Unmasked album, it's not Unmasked, but it's called Unmasked. Once you get there, we'll do our first review. Yep.
So I'm gonna just say something off the cuff here. Nova, you're a Kiss fan, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to be part of that stream, even though it's on Phil's channel?
Depends on what night it is or what time. That's the only thing. It's like I just started back with my work, so it's like my free time is like not as
I gotcha.
Not as free as it is.
Yeah, I gotcha. But yeah, once we have more concrete times for you, we'll let you know. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Because it's like I basically remembered that from. Well, first time I heard them, I was like in the 4th grade. And
yeah.
my mom and dad did not like it. And then it's like I listened to them during the 80s with their unmasking. And then that's pretty much the gist of it.
Right. And your favorite guitarist is still Tommy Thayer, right?
Oh, he's the GOAT.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you like the new outro. And just remember, the Force is family.